Welcome everybody. Today we are going to start a new chapter, Biological Classification. This is the chapter 2 of class 11th biology. So what we discuss in this chapter? So the whole chapter will be discussed in 3 parts. Today we are going to discuss the part 1. In this part 1 we'll discuss the 2 kingdom classification, 5 kingdom classification and kingdom Monera. So these are the points that we are going to discuss. The topics, as I said, 2 kingdom classification, 5 kingdom classification and kingdom Monera. So several scientists attempted to classify the living organism, but Aristotle was the earliest to attempt a more scientific basis for classification. So what is scientific basis of classification? What is science? Science is the systematic study of knowledge. So Aristotle was the first person to classify the organism systematically in a systematic way. And he used the simple morphological characters to classify. Morphological characters means the external observable features or physical features. So he used only morphological characters and he divided the plants into trees, shrubs and herbs. And he also classified the animals into 2 groups. Those which has red blood cell, that is RBC, and those which has no red blood cell. Okay, so Aristotle classified the whole organism into 2 groups, that is plants and animals. The plants included the trees, shrubs and herbs. The animal included the 2 groups, that is the group containing RBC and the group without RBC. So this was simply based on the morphological characters. Then the 2 kingdom classification system was proposed by Carolus Linnaeus. So according to Carolus Linnaeus, what are the 2 kingdoms? The 2 kingdoms are Plantae and Animalia. The Plantae includes all plants, means the organisms which are autotrophic, having cell wall and cannot move. He classified these organisms into Plantae. Then Animalia. Animalia included all animals. So according to Carolus Linnaeus, what are the animals? The animals are those organisms which are heterotrophic, without cell wall and cannot move. So on these criteria, he classified the whole organism into 2 kingdoms. But there are some limitations of 2 kingdom classification. So let us see what were the limitations or drawbacks of this classification. This system did not distinguish between eukaryotes and prokaryotes, unicellular and multicellular organisms, and photosynthetic, that is like green algae, and non-photosynthetic fungi organism. And besides that, um, it was not that much easy to understand which organism comes under plant kingdom and which organism comes under animal kingdom. And besides that, some organism like lichens, they did not fall into any of this category. So these were the shortfalls of two-kingdom classification that was proposed by Carolus Linnaeus. Then afterward, a five-kingdom classification was proposed by R. H. Whitaker in 1969. So the kingdom, according to R. H. Whitaker, what were the five kingdoms? The five kingdoms were Monera, Protista, Fungi, Plantae, and Animalia. So these are the five kingdoms according to R. H. Whitaker. Now, on what basis he classified the organism into five kingdoms? So let us discuss those criteria or basis of five kingdom classification. The main criteria for classification used by Whitaker are the cell structure. Cell structure means it includes all the characteristics of cells like whether they are prokaryote or eukaryote. That means the presence or absence of a definite nucleus, presence or absence of cell wall, the nature of cell wall, composition of cell wall, presence or absence of the cell organelles. So all these things are included under this criteria. Then other basis was body organization. Body organization means it includes unicellular or multicellular or tissue organ. So this is the body organism. That means it included all multicellular and unicellular organisms. Then the other basis was mode of nutrition. Mode of nutrition means whether the organisms are heterotrophic or autotrophic or both heterotrophic and autotrophic. Some organisms are both heterotrophic and autotrophic. The other basis was reproduction. So on the basis of reproduction, the organism may be reproducing sexually or asexually, and some organisms are also reproducing both sexually and asexually. Then the most important one was the phylogenetic relationship. What is phylogenetic relationship? Phylogenetic relationship means the evolutionary relationship. That means during the course of evolution, if the organisms are related in any way, that means they might have a common ancestor, maybe the immediate ancestor or that is the distant ancestors. So that is the phylogenetic relationship. For example, like human being, apes, monkeys, chimpanzee, gorilla. So these animals are included under primata because uh, it was believed that these organisms are having a common ancestor. So more similarities are found among these organisms. So that's why they are grouped under primata. So in this way, the classification was made. Now, characteristics of five kingdom classification. So as I said, there are different bases. So here, what are the characters? The cell type. Cell type, as I said, that cell structure was the basis, and that included the cell type, cell wall, nuclear membrane. So here you can see cell type. Under cell type, it may be prokaryotic. If it is prokaryotic, then it is Monera. If eukaryotic, then Protista. And fungi are eukaryotic, plantae are eukaryotic, animalia are eukaryotic. But now coming to the cell wall property. In Monera, it is not made up of cellulose. Instead of that, it is made up of a polysaccharide plus amino acid that is known as peptidoglycan. In case of Protista, cell wall is not present in all the organisms, but it is present in some organisms. Coming to fungi, the cell wall is present and it is made up of chitin. In Plantae, the cell wall is present in the cell and it is made up of cellulose. In Animalia, there is no cell wall in the cell. Next, coming to the nuclear membrane, in Monera, since it includes all the prokaryotes, so the definite nucleus is absent. That means the nuclear membrane is absent. In Protista, nuclear membrane is present. Fungi, Plantae and Animalia, in all these three cases, the nuclear membrane is present. Now coming to the body organization, whether the organism is unicellular, multicellular or having tissue, organ or organ system. So if coming to the Monera, they are cellular. That means they are made up of a single cell. They may form colonies. Then Protista, it is a cellular. Then fungi, it is multicellular, sometimes unicellular also. Plantae, they are made up of tissue and organs. In Animalia, the body is made up of tissue, organ system. Then coming to the mode of nutrition. In case of Monera, they are autotrophic or heterotrophic. If autotrophic, they may be chemosynthetic or photosynthetic. And if heterotrophic, they may be saprophytic or parasitic. Protista are autotrophic and heterotrophic. They may be autotrophic or heterotrophic or both. Fungi, they are always heterotrophic and mainly they are parasitic or saprophytic. Plantae, because it includes all the green plants, so they are always autotrophic, photosynthetic. Animalia, it is heterotrophic. The mode of nutrition is holozoic or saprophytic. Now, what are the disadvantages of five kingdom classification? In five kingdom classification, also there were some shortcomings. That is, unicellular algae are kept in kingdom Protista, whereas algae are multicellular organisms. Those algae which are multicellular organisms, they are kept in kingdom Plantae. Okay, so according to classification system, a particular group of organism must be put together, but here they are put separately. The other shortfall was that there is a diversity in kingdom Protista, and under Protista dissimilar organisms are kept, so that should not be there. Then other one is all organisms other than monerans, so that they are polyphyletic in origin. And it is the great shortcoming of five kingdom classification. So मोनेरा में जो organism included थे, उनका जो phylogenetic relationship था, that was diversified. That means the ancestors are not related. The other one is there is no place for viruses in five kingdom classification. And similar organisms are kept far from each other. For example, unicellular and multicellular algae, as I said in the first point. So these were the disadvantages of five kingdom classification. Later on, six kingdom classification was also proposed. Now let us discuss the kingdom Monera. In this part, we'll discuss kingdom Monera, and in successive part, we'll discuss other kingdoms. So the kingdom Monera includes the bacteria. So that's why the bacteria are the sole members of the kingdom Monera. And these bacteria are most abundant microorganisms, and they occur almost everywhere, any kind of habitat. And suppose you take a handful of soil, and if you see it under microscope, you can observe hundreds of bacteria. And like the bacteria, some bacteria are there which can live in extreme habitats like very hot climate, like desert and snow and deep ocean where there is no light, and they can also available in the region where enough light is there, and they can exist in such environment where other life cannot exist or other life cannot survive, and many of them live in some other organism, so they may be parasitic. Now, classification of the bacteria on the basis of their shape. So bacteria are classified on different bases, but in your syllabus it is only the classification based on their shape is given. So on the basis of the shape, the bacteria are classified as spherical, known as coccus. So the singular is coccus, plural is cocci, the spherical shaped bacteria. Then rod shaped bacteria are called bacillus, singular is bacillus, plural is bacilli. Similarly, comma shaped bacteria, they are called vibrio. Vibrio is the singular, plural is vibrio. Then similarly, spiral shaped bacteria are called spirillum, and the plural is spirilla. So you can see the picture in the picture, the cocci, how they are spherical and dot shaped. Then next one is your bacilli, they are rod shaped. And the third one is spirilla, they are spiral shaped and they often bear the flagella. Then the last one is comma shaped, that is vibrio. So now you can see in the picture, it is the cell of a bacteria, and though the bacteria structure is very simple as compared to the eukaryotic cell, their behavior is very complex. And bacteria as a group show the most extensive metabolic diversity. Metabolic diversity means varieties of chemical reactions are taking place in it. Diversified metabolic reactions, that is chemical reactions, are very typical. And some of the bacteria are that like autotrophic, and some are heterotrophic. So when they are autotrophic, they may be photosynthetic or chemosynthetic autotrophic. I'll tell you what is photosynthetic and chemosynthetic autotrophic. So now from the picture you can see the how the structure in previous classes, in your lower classes you have studied the structure of plant cell and animal cell. If you compare the structure of prokaryotic cell and eukaryotic cell, definitely you will say that the structure of eukaryotic cell is very complex. But behaviorically, the prokaryotic cell is more complex. Um, but the vast majority of bacteria are heterotrophs, and they depend on other organism or on dead organic matter for food. So they may be parasitic or saprophytic. So both mode of nutritions are found in different types of bacteria. So the bacteria are classified into archaebacteria, eubacteria, then cyanobacteria, and your. So now these, let us first discuss archaebacteria. These bacteria are very special because they can live in the harsh habitats. Harsh means the habitats which are not usually inhabited by any other organism, like extreme habitats. So they are classified into three groups. Those who can survive in extreme salty area are called halophytes. Those archaebacteria which can survive in hot springs. They are called thermoacidophiles. And those bacteria which can survive in marshy areas as well as in the gut of the some ruminants. They are known as methanogens. So these are the three groups of archaebacteria and which can survive in extreme conditions. And these archaebacteria are different from other bacteria like eubacteria and cyanobacteria and mycoplasma because they have a very different cell wall, and that cell wall is only responsible for surviving in the extreme climates or extreme conditions. Okay, because of their flexible cell wall. And methanogens, as I said, they are present in the gut of several ruminant animals like cows, buffaloes, and that's why the cow dung is used to produce biogas. And what is the composition of biogas? The major composition is methane. Besides that, carbon dioxide is also there, hydrogen is there, and H2S is also there. But the major component is methane. Okay. Here you can see some examples of methanogens and their habitats. You can see that is your termite hindgut. In the termite's hindgut, this bacteria is found, Arborephilus. Then in sewage sludge digester, like for the water treatment plant, the Thermoautotrophicum and Formicicum and Methanocyta. So because these are the methanogens, so the after purification of the water, the whatever residue is left, that is used for producing the biogas. So here you can see the in case of rice field or rice paddy field, the marshland is there. So these are the group of bacteria which are seen in marshland. Then tundras like um, very cold climate, the some unknown methano archaea are there. Okay. Then in hydrothermal vent means this is the reason or this is the environment where the very hot water is there. So there also they can survive even in 110 degree, 85 degree and 90 degree Celsius. Then wet wood of trees, Arborephilus are found. Then human large intestine also some methanogens are there, and in rumen of the ruminants. The rumen is the extra chamber of the stomach present in ruminants. So they are present in huge number. Then protozoans, in protozoans also some bacteria are there. Then in horses also some bacteria are there. So these are the varieties of habitats where the methanogens are inhibited. The next group of bacteria, that is eubacteria. Eu means true. So this is the bacteria. This group of bacteria includes those bacteria which are called as true bacteria because they have a characterized by the presence of rigid cell wall, and it is made up of peptidoglycan. And if these bacteria are motile, then they have a flagellum. But the non-motile bacteria are not having any flagellum. So the eubacteria are classified into autotrophic and heterotrophic. And again, autotrophic eubacteria are classified into photosynthetic and chemosynthetic. And here I have given the example of photosynthetic bacteria, that is blue-green algae, nostoc, anabaena. Then in under chemosynthetic bacteria, the Vestimentifera and Calyptozena. So these are the chemosynthetic bacteria. let us discuss the cyanobacteria. The cyanobacteria are the photosynthetic autotrophs. So as I said the bacteria may be photosynthetic autotroph or chemosynthetic autotroph. The cyanobacteria are also known as blue-green algae, and the speciality is that they have the chlorophyll that is similar to the green plant, and they can carry out photosynthesis. And these cyanobacteria are unicellular, colonial. Colonial means they always remain in groups, or they may form a filament. They may arrange themselves in a filamentous structure, and they can remain in fresh water or marine or terrestrial. And when they form the colonies are generally surrounded by a gelatinous sheath. Here you can see that is these are the filamentous algae. The algae are arranged to form a filament, and they are surrounded by the gelatinous sheath. Okay. They often form blooms in polluted water bodies. Bloom means what? The blue-green algae generally form the bloom that is called algal bloom. What is bloom? When the water body, because of the pollutants, the water body becomes rich in the nutrients. And these nutrients are mainly your phosphorus and nitrogen. Then getting the nutrients, these type of bacteria, they multiply and their number increases to such an extent that they cover the whole water surface. Okay, you might have observed that often a pond, the part of the pond that is not used, that part is covered by a green layer. So these green layers are nothing but your algae. Okay, and this is called algal bloom. Now some of these bacteria can fix atmospheric nitrogen in a specialized cell called heterocyst. So here you can see in this diagram, here there is a here in a this is a filament of the bacteria, cyanobacteria or blue-green algae. But in the filament, at some places you can see a specific type of cell, a special type of cell which can fix the nitrogen. All cell cannot fix the nitrogen. Only this cell can fix the nitrogen. That is called heterocyst. And the common example of blue-green algae are Nostoc and Anabaena. Now the chemosynthetic autotrophic bacteria. The chemosynthetic autotrophic bacteria oxidize various organic substances like nitrates, nitrites, ammonia, and they get the energy from that substances. Since they are using the chemical substances to get the energy, they are called chemosynthetic autotrophic bacteria. So they can produce their own food, but converting the chemicals into usable nutrients. Okay, and they can live in the depth of the ocean because there is no need of light. Light is not required for the synthesis of their food. They simply need some chemicals. That's why they can live at the depth of the ocean where light does not reach. And they play a great role in recycling the nutrients like nitrogen, phosphorus, iron and sulfur. The nitrogen fixing bacteria like rhizobium. So they are the chemosynthetic autotrophic bacteria. So nitrogen fixing bacteria recycles the that is nitrogen. Similarly, there are some bacteria which can recycle the phosphorus, iron and sulfur. So here some examples of chemosynthetic bacteria are there: nitrifying bacteria, nitrobacter. So these two bacteria are the part of a nitrogen cycle. Sulfur bacteria, iron bacteria, hydrogen bacteria, methane bacteria. So these types of bacteria can recycle the specific type of nutrient. Like sulfur bacteria can recycle sulfur. Nitrifying bacteria can help in recycling the nitrogen. Then come to the heterotrophic bacteria. Uh, Heterotrophic bacteria are most abundant in nature. The majority are the important decomposers. Many of them have a significant impact on human affairs, like say your lactobacillus, which is helpful in converting the milk into curd, and also synthesis of vitamin B12. There some bacteria are used for production of antibiotics, that is medicine, and some bacteria can fix the nitrogen in legume roots, and some are pathogens causing damage to the human being, crops, farm animals and pets. So these heterotrophic bacteria show diversified behavior, okay, and they cause the disease in human being, and some of the diseases are cholera, typhoid, influenza, tetanus, and they even cause disease in the plants also, like citrus canker. So here the heterotrophic bacteria, their mode of nutrition may be parasitic, saprophytic, pathogenic, or non-pathogenic bacteria. Parasitic bacteria means they depend upon other living organisms for their food. They obtain their food from other organisms. Saprophytic bacteria, they obtain food from the dead organic matter. The pathogenic bacteria cause disease in the other organism, mainly the human being and other animals also. Non-pathogenic bacteria are those bacteria which do not cause any disease, but they help in many ways in the human affairs. So the parasitic bacteria, here you can see in the picture the parasitic bacteria, parasitic bacteria are there. So parasitic bacteria is a bacteria that obtain energy from its host. Host means the living organism in which it lives. It lives in human, animals or plants, and it causes the disease in the host. That's why they are called pathogen. So here on the left side I have given the example of Mycobacterium tuberculosis that causes tuberculosis in human being. Okay, and they can form a acid stable complex when certain early methane dyes are added. इसको हम देखेंगे कैसे when we add a particular dye we can observe this type of bacteria. Now come to your Bacillus anthracis that causes anthrax. So like this you can get idea of many other types of bacteria which are parasitic and both parasitic and pathogenic. Now saprophytic bacteria. E. coli. E. coli is a Escherichia coli is a saprophytic bacteria. This E. coli is an anaerobic. Aerobic means they use oxygen, and they are rod-shaped bacteria. From the structure, I think it is very clear to you. These are the rod-shaped bacteria, and they are generally found in the animal feces and the lower intestine of mammals. Even in human beings intestine they are found, and they are also they can live in the harsh condition like hot springs. Then coming to the Lactobacillus bulgaricus, it is a bacteria that used for yogurt production. Then coming to the pathogen bacteria, which causes many diseases in a different organism. Here example is given gonorrhea, that is a disease caused in human being. Um, that is a type of sexual transmitted disease. It is due to the infection of bacteria, that is Neisseria gonorrhoeae. Okay, so like this, that is Haemophilus influenzae that causes hemophilia, pneumococcus bacteria or Streptococcus pneumonia that causes pneumonia. So these are the pathogen bacteria. The non-pathogen bacteria. So non-pathogen bacteria, they live inside the body of other organism, but they don't cause any harm to the host, like E. coli. So E. coli is helpful for human body. They live in the intestine of human body, but they help in digestion of the food, and also they help in production of vitamin K and absorption of the food after digestion. Now let us discuss the reproduction in bacteria. Bacteria reproduce mainly by fission. But besides that, fission is a type of asexual reproduction. Besides binary fission, they also divide by the production of spores. But the spore production takes place under unfavorable conditions only. But during favorable condition, they divide by binary fission. So here in the picture you can see how the binary fission is taking place in the bacteria. Initially there is a single bacterial cell, then gradually how it is dividing, its genetic material is duplicated, then the nuclear material, nucleus is not there but the genetic material divides into two, and then it is, the whole cell is divided. Now two daughter cells are produced. It is exactly similar to, more or less similar to the binary fission that takes place in case of amoeba, but the difference is that in amoeba is a eukaryotic cell but it is a prokaryotic cell, so in that way it is different. But the bacteria can also reproduce by sexual method. Uh, that sexual method of reproduction is called conjugation. That is the primitive type of sexual reproduction, during which they transfer the DNA from one bacteria to other bacteria. Then when do these bacteria undergo sexual reproduction? They never always undergo sexual reproduction. After several asexual reproduction, they undergo sexual reproduction to rejuvenate or to regain the lost vigor. They undergo sexual reproduction. The next another group of bacteria is Mycoplasma. It is the smallest known living organism. Remember, it is very important, and this is a very special type of organism because of the uh, following characteristics. They are the smallest prokaryotes and they are capable of binary fission. And their pleomorphic morphologic forms, um, and because there is no cell wall, they can take different shape. They don't have a cell wall made up of peptidoglycan, as it is like your other bacteria. In other bacteria, the cell wall is made of peptidoglycan, but in Mycoplasma, the cell wall is not made up of peptidoglycan, uh, or cell wall is absent. That's why they are known as wall-less bacteria. Okay. Um, the cell is bounded by plasma membrane and consisted of lipids and sterols. Hence, they are highly pleomorphic. Okay, and um, the outer membrane is without lipoprotein. जो cell membrane है eukaryote में, that is made up of lipoprotein, but here it is the sterol and lipid. Okay, and they can survive without oxygen. This is a very important point, and they are generally found in the upper respiratory tract of human being. Here you can see the picture of mycoplasma. You can see that there is no cell wall. Cell wall is not there. Then only the outer membrane, which is a three-layered membrane. It is unlike the normal plasma membrane of eukaryotes, and inside the cell the genetic material is present. There is no nucleus, but ribosomes are present, RNA are present, and this is the cytoplasm of this organism. Okay, and they can survive without oxygen. That means they are anaerobic. So what are the two important features of this mycoplasma? These are the smallest prokaryote, even we can say the smallest living organism known so far, without cell wall and can survive without oxygen. So in this session we discussed the kingdom Monera. We have to discuss 4 more kingdom. So in our next topic, in next session we'll discuss the second kingdom, that is kingdom Protista. So if you have not yet subscribed my channel, please subscribe and watch all the videos. Thank you for watching.